Boa tarde a todos. Good afternoon to all.
For your presence here today at this seminar entitled Poverty and Urban Development, the Periphery at the Center of the 2030 Development Agenda. I think it's a great title. And the global launch of the Central Union of Favelas, CUFA, which the Mission of Brazil is proud to co-sponsor with the Brazilian Ministry of Social Development and the Fight Against Hunger, and the Central Union of Favelas, CUFA, with participation from the UNESCO Brazil office, the London School of Economics, and the World Bank. Allow me to give a special welcome to the Minister for Social Development and the Fight Against Hunger, Pobreza Urbana, here with us at the UN today. As well as all of the representatives of the Central Union of Favelas, including its founder, Celso Ataide, and its president, Preto Zezé. Ladies and gentlemen, through public policies developed with the active participation of Minister Campelo, Brazil has placed the eradication of poverty at the center of its development agenda, and we are pleased to see that this is also at the heart of the UN's 2030 development agenda. As it is known, vulnerability is higher in countries with greater income inequality. From our own experience, if we address inequality and empower people, we can reduce vulnerability and combat poverty more effectively. Coupled with these initiatives, but also central to them, are our social policies, such as conditional cash transfer programs, government procurement and local purchases, particularly in the area of food security, which have had a major impact on income redistribution and significantly reduced poverty and hunger. For example, our program of local food purchasing for school meals has strengthened family farming while increasing food security. During the last 2 years, delegations from 52 countries visited Brazil in order to learn more about these social policies. For these reasons, it is a special privilege for us to have here today the Minister for Social Development of Brazil, Pobreza Campelo, who will be presenting these policies in further detail in a few moments. We are also privileged to host this afternoon the launch of CUFA Global, the international branch of the Central Union of Favelas. This important and award-winning civil society organization is present in all states of Brazil, representing millions of people who live in Brazil's favelas, the slums and shantytowns, and we are honored to have here its founder, Celso Ataide, and President Preto Zezé, along with hundreds of the organization's representatives who have traveled from Brazil to be here at the United Nations today. We are fortunate to be welcoming Celso Ataide for the second time this week, in fact, as he also participated in the panel called Self-Representation as a Strategy to Fight Racism, which was hosted by Brazil and the United States this Wednesday in the context of the International Decade for Persons of African Descent, Recognition, Justice, and Development. As you are aware, in Brazil, approximately 50% of the population overall and 67% of people living in slums are of African descent. This joint seminar we will hold today is highly illustrative of the important and strategic partnerships Brazil has established between government and civil society. Many of the key successes of Brazil's social policies implemented by the Ministry of Social Development are enhanced by the active efforts of civil society, by the dedication of important non-governmental organizations such as Central Union of Favelas. Ladies and gentlemen, next week we will be adopting the Sustainable Development Goals, a comprehensive, far-reaching, and people-centered set of universal and transformative goals and targets. This agenda of unprecedented scope and significance is the result of intensive public consultation with civil society and other stakeholders around the world, which has given due priority to the world's poorest and most vulnerable, and is a direct result of the Rio+20 conference held in Rio de Janeiro in June of 2012, and its key outcome document, The Future We Want. The new agenda promotes an integrated vision of development whereby economic growth cannot be achieved without social inclusion and environmental sustainability. Many of its goals and targets reflect policies that we have already been implementing in Brazil over the last decade or so. Among the goals are specific references and targets regarding inequality within and among countries, sustainable cities and access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing, which we hope will improve the quality of life of over 1 billion people who live in favelas, slums, and shanty towns worldwide. In this regard, we have great expectations with respect to the outcomes of the Habitat 3 Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, which will be taking place in Quito, Ecuador, from 17 to 20 October 2016. It is now my honor to welcome our first panel, which will be composed of Minister Teresa Campelo, Celso Ataide from CUFA, Ahmed Al-Khandawi, Special Envoy on Youth of the UN Secretary General, Maria Concepcion Steta, Senior Expert on Social Protection and Labor of the World Bank, Sandra Jovlekovic, Social Psychology Professor at the London School of Economics and Political Science, Yamina Jakta, Director of UN Habitat in New York, and Marlova Noleto, Director of UNESCO's Programming Area in Brazil. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to our moderator, Marlova Noleto, Director of UNESCO, and I wish you all a very productive and informative afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Eu acho que eu vou pedir.
I think I'm going to ask for your permission and speak in Portuguese. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to be here today as moderator of the panel regarding poverty, urban poverty and development in Brazil, periphery at the center of the post-2015 agenda. As the ambassador reminded us, in 2 weeks, the UN will adopt a new development goals or sustainable development for the post-2015, and more than ever, it's important that the Brazilian development model could be shared with all. I would like to, on my behalf, as well as UNESCO's, give a special thanks to our partners and friends at CUFA for allowing us to share this path since the onset. And this is such a fantastic path and has such an important mark in this week with the launch here today at the UN. UNESCO started support CUFA in '79 in Brazil, and since then we have been writing a very interesting chapter together, to which LSE, London School of Economics, came to participate, the Economic Bank through its own Itaú Bank, through 2 foundations, and in a partnership unheard of, multi-stakeholder. We had a study, subterranean societies about CUFA and Afro-Regi, trying to dive deeply and understand how the vitality of the periphery emerges with force and could influence public policies. I think this panel today is regarding this vitality and this strength and this great combination of the most beautiful that's being made in Brazil, together with public policies and base organizations. I would like then to start giving the floor to Minister Teresa Campelo. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. It is a great honor and a great pleasure to be a part of this moment. This is a moment where we're joining forces to try to build something new. I think we are here at the frontier of knowledge and production of public policies at the frontier of the construction of a new country, not only a new favela, but especially to build new opportunities and a new world. So it's a great joy to be able to be here. I would like to start by greeting our ambassador, Antonio Patriota, permanent representative of Brazil at the UN. I would like to thank the effort and partnership from the Brazilian mission so that this could be made feasible. I would like to greet Mr. Ahmad Al-Wendawi, Special Envoy of the General Secretary of UN for Youth. I'd like to greet and thank Celso Ataíde, founder of Central Única das Favelas, and also greet Preto Zezé, who is here, and the team and all those who helped create CUFA. It's a great opportunity for the Brazilian government. And here I'm speaking not only on behalf of the ministry as well as the whole government to be able to share and be part of this experience of a unique organization from the civil society, which CUFA has lived, sponsored, promoted. And I think that all of us really are learning a lot, right, Celso, on how to work together, how to build this new what social technologies are, to which extent civil society has to help criticize and to promote public policy, and to what extent the state has to be participating and promoting these initiatives and these social policies. Therefore, I think this is a moment where we sit together at the table as partners to build this new and actually also celebrate another moment of unity and partnership. I would like also to greet my dear friend and partner, Marlova Noleto, Director of the Program Area of UNESCO Brazil, partner of MDS in so many actions. I would like to thank for being here together so that we can promote this beautiful activity, this seminar. I'd like to greet Yamina Jakta, the ONU Director of UN Habitat Director in New York. I would like to greet our dear friend, also from Brazil, our partner here, representing LSE, Professor Sandra Jovcelovic. One day I will learn how to pronounce your last name. Dear Sandra, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us. I'd like to greet Conceição Speta, Senior Expert on Social Protection and Labor of the World Bank, and has also worked along with the Brazilian government, advanced in so many areas, not only work, but social area as well. I'd like to thank you for your partnership. Also greet here present with us our ex-Minister for Human Rights, and who helped us so much in the government, and today is the Director of Human Access to Human Rights to the OAS, Delik Salvati. Delik, it's a pleasure to have you here with us, and our ex-minister representing today Ford Foundation in Brazil, partner in this activity, Nilceia Freire. And especially I would like to greet all of you who certainly are part of this process. We have so many people here, Renato Meirelles, René, everybody here. It's less an authority and more a builder of this process. Brazil, I would like to start speaking about the challenge. It's an opportunity to be here today on debating these ideas in the week before the construction, the formal launching of the new goals for sustainable development. I think the word that's being said so much for us today, as well as the agenda, is opportunity. Brazil used the agenda of the last 15 years, the Millennium Goals, as a great searchlight to have goals to implement development policies, as well as help to build a great process in Brazil where the Millennium Goals were not just a reference for the federal government, but for the states and municipalities as well, and where even civil society started to mobilize and started to demand results and driving us to reach these goals. And we got to the end of these 15 years, being able to celebrate important results achieved by Brazil, who today is a country that is a reference, is a benchmark. We reached 7 of the goals. The only one that we didn't was we advanced a lot, which is death in maternity, but all the other goals we reached, and then we gave ourselves new goals. We reached them again, and now we can come to the end of these 15 years celebrating that Brazil reduced poverty in an unheard of way. Not many countries in the world were able to do this. We left the map of hunger, and we can celebrate this. We can say today that we entered the agenda of the post-2015 agenda, which is the agenda that will take us to 2013. Proudly being able to say that Brazil, not only we have the first generation of children that are hunger-free, but going to school. And I think this is a victory that Brazil has to celebrate intensely, but we still live in a country that still is one of the most unequal countries in the world. So we have giant tasks still to realize. We have to look back and see what we've done, and that's just to give us the energy to know that we will keep advancing and we will reach the goals that we want. The new sustainable development goals be also a process to mobilize the country. And I think from the 17 goals, that gives us a benchmark for a lot of challenges. We don't just want to discuss the social agenda. We want to discuss the social agenda, the economic agenda, as well as the sustainable environment agenda. We're not just interested in fighting poverty from an income perspective. We want to overcome poverty, hunger. We want to ensure a environment. We want to help to build a country that has access to sewage, water, health, and so forth. So I would like to quickly, I think Brazil is already within this agenda. Doesn't mean we have already reached these goals. On the opposite, we have giant tasks ahead of us, but we already started new goals within this perspective that income isn't enough as a driver of our social policies in Brazil. So I would like to demonstrate real quickly some of our main data, not only to commemorate or celebrate our victories, but also to point out a new direction in the new sustainable development goals, which is to look at the set of indicators in an integrated and added form, which helps us think that this challenge that this seminar is giving us, which is the urban issues, the development of these great spaces that are the Brazilian favelas, which we call it a country named favela, as Celso says and Renato too. Actually, we have a giant mobilizing force or strength within each of these spaces that wants and demands that the country advances with this broad perspective. So I would like to show you very briefly some of these results. First of them is the map of hunger itself. This is the trajectory of Brazil in overcoming hunger. These are the FAO results from the United Nations looking at the issue of the hunger and subnutrition in the world. Brazil was able to leave from 2002 from 10% of its population was undernourished. And in a little over 10 years, we were able to leave 10% to 1.7. This is not a criterion that just looks at the production of food. Brazil was always a rich country. It was always a big food-producing country, but yet it was always a country blemished by hunger. How do we alter this trajectory so quickly? According to FAO itself, first, we were able to increase the production of food through family farming. And number two, we ensured access to food by the poor populations, which means we had to increase wages, give more income, create a network so that the segment has access to this quantity of food that Brazil always produced, and they ended up always exporting. It wasn't accessible to its own population. Number three, take food in new ways to these people as food and school meals today. Brazil today feeds in their schools 43 million children, which is the equivalent to one Argentina we feed Monday to Friday inside our schools, some with better quality, others we still have to improve. But this is an advance that allowed us today to be celebrating some of these indicators today, exactly because we want to work with a perspective that is integrated. We have this idea that isn't enough to just look at income. So when President Dilma built Brazil without poverty, it was under this scope that we want more. There's not just income. So today we look at three aspects: Bolsa Familia program, access to income, but as well as the productive inclusion, urban and rural, as well as better access to public services. I think we can be proud that we always talk about a lot Bolsa Familia, which I think is a great reference throughout the world today. More than just bringing income to the poor, it also ensured that we could bring children to school. Today we can be proud of having our children in school. The quality of schooling has to improve, but the kids are already in school. They're out of the streets. They're in school. We have a giant challenge regarding young people who are leaving school. That's a challenge that is within our agenda of goals, and maybe within our agenda that involves the great urban centers, and the big challenges will be this issue of these issues regarding our youth, black youth, who most suffers the most with the violence, and they need more attention, and it's a great challenge that Brazil needs to work in this next period. We can be proud to say that we reduced child mortality 60% with Bolsa Familia. We can say that we reduced 41% inequality in education, that separated 20% of the poorest children in Brazil from the 80% richer children. But I would like to briefly show you some of our results in the urban productive inclusion, which I think is what this seminar has as focus. One of the issues that have been present to us is how do you ensure work for the young laborer. We were able to bring 1.7 million people to education related to work. And who are these young women and young black people? 40% within this plan are women. The great majority are black. So we are getting to where we wanted to with courses that not only has allowed to increase our productivity, but take opportunity to our population. As I said, it's not a favor. Access to opportunities. Everybody wants to grow.
The second objective that we have been that we have to improve. We have a lot to learn with social technology experiences of many entities that have working with urban productive inclusion, which is entrepreneurs. In the last 4 years, we have formalized 500,000 of entrepreneurs, 500,000 Brazilians that were already entrepreneurs that had survival strategies and worked, but they were not formal, they were not included in a protective network, and they had no access to credit or to public policies or public procurement. But we still have a lot to build because there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Brazil that help us to have a dynamic agenda. I'm sure that on the next panel you will have the opportunity to see researches that show us the people who live in the favelas and that have expectation of continue to live in community, but that they need also opportunities. So there's a lot of relationship with the first items that I mentioned, and also a productive access to credit. 3.9 million bank operations were available to this population, which are the family stipend population. So, this argument that people don't want to work have no real basis. And the effort with the team of Professor Paul Singer is to also to strengthen an agenda of small co-op farmers and associated partnership work that is also very common in urban and community spaces in Brazil. So we have dozens of actions. I wanted to mention a few of them because they encourage us, because if we've done this, we can do so much more. The Brazilian society demands that, and we have to be alert for that. And just to briefly wrap up, to show what we call multidimensional poverty, and which is, I think, is the greatest challenge for MDS. You cannot just look at the poverty when it comes to income. They also don't have access to other things, and we have to look at the Brazilian population behavior and what happened with this poor population, and how we, in the last 12 years, they have so much more access to policies. So this multidimensional poverty perspective, according to the World Bank methodology, a lot of people work with multidimensional poverty, but we decided to show the World Bank's methodology, which doesn't work only with income, lower income populations, but also the ones that don't have access to other strategic actions so that they can get out of poverty. The first one, in all of them, you will see all the same situation. The red curve shows what happened with the 5 poorest in the population when it comes to access to services, and on the blue curve, the total population. And here we have access to education, improvement of education, not only for children, but also for the parents, the head of households, being men and women. We have a lot to do still, but we went from 14 to 34% in 10 years. But 34% is also still a lower rate. So we have to discuss how to go from 34% so that parents have access to education, basic education. Here, I think, is the greatest number, showing a revolution, actually, in Brazil when it comes to access to education, and that the family stipend has been providing. We can be proud today that we virtually have universalized access to education to our children. Children in Brazil were not out of school because we didn't have school. We had school, but children would leave school and would drop out, and now we're able to maintain these children in the classroom. Now the challenge is not only increasing access, but the quality of education, strengthening education, and to improve the quality of our schools. So our victory today, now we have the same level between the population in Brazil and the 5% poorest. Same thing to access to water. We have improved it. We have a lot to do yet. And what impacted was the northeast cisterns, and also basic sanitation. That is also a large challenge in our agenda of sustainable development. When it comes to access to services, you see that in every case, the poor population had more access than the rest of the population, access to energy, to power. 15 million Brazilians used to live in 2002 in the Middle Ages. We brought power to more than 3 million households, and not only being able to increase access to energy, but also to other assets that are impossible without powers. One of them is, which is strategic to maintain food, which is access to freezer or refrigerator, which has to do with access to income and to power, electrical power, which has been able to increase access. And finally, cell phones. If we get these 7 dimensions of the World Bank and the income dimension, we have this curve, which is Brazil. Used to have more than 8% of its population in 2002 in chronic poverty. Now it has a little more than 1% of the population as chronic poverty. For 200 million inhabitants, 1% of the population is still a high number. So we have a large challenge to continue with this curve and discuss other agendas and areas to be prioritized so that we can assure not only dignity but also rights and opportunities. Brazil is going through a situation today that is very difficult. The world is going through a crisis, and Brazil is not immune to this crisis. Actually, we're going through a fiscal adjustment time frame, and we have to social policies, even though in this year, next year is not going the same pace as before, but they're not stagnated. Our actions are still working, and we discussed today in Brazil our risk of taking a step back when it comes to democracy. And our important discussion, key discussion in Brazil is not only going backwards when it comes to democracy, but also going backwards in our social achievements. In Brazil, we discuss reviewing minimum age to go to prison for children. This is really a shame because Brazil has achieved a lot on social achievements. We have to continue with this debate, and also gender debates, racism discussions, increase of prejudice against populations in favelas and the poorest population. And we're doing a lot we never imagined that we would do, but we still have to do more. We have a lot of victories, and we're discussing a backward agenda at the same time. And I would like to take advantage of this moment to call your attention that we have to look at 2030 and question ourselves how we're going to advance, what are the opportunities and challenges, but at the same time we have to look at the future at 23, and another eye has to pay attention in order not to go backwards and not to cancel out all the social achievements of Brazil. Thank you so much. I would like to thank Minister Teresa Campelo's presentation. It's always a great pleasure to hear what you have to say. And I think that for all of us Brazilians, that we have been following up with the situation, and UNESCO has been really close with the MDS work, and inequality is very important, and also the water tanks or cisterns are very important. I had an opportunity to see the changes of the semi-arid northeast region and how the cisterns have impacted the reduction of inequalities in the area. So I would like to greet you. Thank you so much for this privilege for the privilege to be your partner. And I would like now to give the floor to Professor Sandra Chelovich.
By thanking the invitation of the Ministry for Social Development and Fight Against Hunger of Brazil and our partners UNESCO and CUFA, with whom we have been developing a collaboration for the last 5 years. I also would like to say thank you to my colleagues, to my students, to the team at my lab, our social and cultural psychology lab at the LSC, whose dedication enabled us to complete this work and to complete this collaboration. And especially a thank you to the people of the favelas of Rio, who enabled us as researchers and academics to walk in and to research and map a difficult life. It was thank you to them especially that we are able to do what we did. Now, I wanted to start my talk, and I think I'm going to switch to Portuguese as I go along and have the privilege to speak and to show off my Brazilian Portuguese a bit. But I want to start my talk by telling a bit of the story of this research. When I came across the experience of organizations such as CUFA back in 2006, it was clear to me and to many researchers who were looking at social development in Brazil that they represented something new, something powerful. Debates about models of social development were already pointing to the quite unique character of the Brazilian experience. And looking at that model, it became clear to us that Brazil was showing its vocation to new beginnings, and at this time, right in the middle of its invisible territories. The favelas in the borders and hills of the cities where underground sociabilities are usually hidden. Now, my first meetings with Celso Ataide, Nega Giza, MV Bill, and so many other characters of the social development movements changing the favelas of Brazil left me a deep, very deep mark. I was impressed by the voices of these actors, by the way they talked, and the power of what they had to tell. There was agency and wisdom in these voices. There was a revealing and intriguing collective intelligence. There was a desire to cross the frontiers, the borders of the city, and to show that in the middle of poverty, daily struggle, and very harsh conditions of living, there were people who wanted to show what their lives were about. And as Celso Ataide said to me once, I don't want to speak favelês. I want to speak Portuguese. I'm not afraid. I want to cross into the city, and now Celso, into the world, to speak about what this life is like. With their presence, they were signaling something utterly new and bottom-up in the Brazilian public sphere. New social actors, unconventional partnerships and dialogues, original responses to the idea of Rio and of the country as a broken city, as a divided country. And to study these experiences and the context from which they emerged became the focus of the research that resulted in Underground Sociabilities, a book that you all can have. It's over there, and the toolkit that we're going to be launching today. What this research tried to do was to map the lessons that were being created and the innovative technologies of social development that Brazil was producing, and of which CUFA constitutes an exemplary case. For 3 years, we studied the sociability of the favelas, the work methodology of CUFA and AFREG, and the representations and experiences of its partners and observers. We discovered that poverty and exclusion produce marginalization and human suffering, but that people living under contextual adversity hold competencies and skills that offer resilience and potential to produce social development. All of this is reported in the book Underground Sociabilities and transformed into practical tools in the toolkit that can be accessed without cost at the LSE and UNESCO websites. Now, what I would like to do today is to reflect a bit and to present some of the key findings of this research. And to do that, you allow me to switch to Portuguese, which is going to make it, I think, more connected to the experiences that we found. Now, os principais achados.
The main findings, yes. The main findings of our research program showed that firstly, one moment please.
Okay.
The first point, social and individual factors interact to shape choices and decision-making on the routes of socialization. Our study demonstrated in a robust way that it contributes to a growing literature in psychology and social sciences, that social contexts form individual trajectories. The life of an individual is not only defined by individual action. So to localize causes of poverty and the segregation of poverty subjects is important. Social contexts have the power of form life trajectories. So with these results, we have to understand the role of public policies within construction of social environments that support and transform positively individual lives. The second point, which is important for our results, that psychosocial scaffoldings traditionally seen as the provision of nuclear families can be provided by a variety of social institutions and NGOs. They are resilience origins, and we call psychosocial scaffoldings actions and structures that support of the individual, him or herself, making the I an integrative strength for social integration. Our research has shown that these scaffolding, psychosocial scaffoldings, are the main predictors of behaviors in favelas in Rio de Janeiro. And CUFA and other institutions, NGOs operating in Rio favelas, offer these scaffoldings, operate as parents, support families, educate and support girls and women, develop positive models for identification, and reinforce the father to socialize them, and pressuring the state to act to make public policies. And with this, they bring to the state the innovative voice, an important voice of a part of the civil society is historically marginalized, combining relationship with the origin communities and creating social development programs and a desire to act publicly. So CUFA demonstrates the importance of combining social movements and the civil society experiences with the state political will to build social welfare. And this shows, I could see in words that I heard from Negra Giza's words in 2010, which is here, around here somewhere. We want to be main characters and transform discrimination in charisma. We are a political force in society. The third point, favela organizations and social movements play a unique role in social development that should be active partners in designing and implementing social policies. This is a very central lesson of our work, which is behind our work expressed on a practical guide that we have today. Our goal is to describe, understand, and elaborate our influence, the power of influence on the actors that we study, because their experiences produce social public policies and increase and reduce their chances of failure or increase their chances of success. Using work methodology, innovated that use identities and local knowledge and attention to the community and the individual using arts and imagination and partnerships to build citizenship. CUFA, for example, offers insights, access to land and to a population that is very hard to reach, and a curriculum that shows efficiency in results. And they also challenge with their voice the stigma of social representation of the poor, marginalized person. And these grassroots organizations come from the communities they represent. It's a power that extracts its efficiency from the social capital and the accumulated knowledge of people who live a very hard life, and they have to confront poverty, and they still resilient and with hope, and they have power over the communities and future.
Fourth and lastly, our study revealed that subterranean sociabilities are mobile and are capable of efficient actions. Our study of human behavior shows first there's resilience and capability and inclusion. Number two, life trajectories could be transformed by ethics of care and social policies given the social course. Human life can be transformed. So what we decided to discuss and study are these experiences, also trying to understand the specific character of the Brazilian social development, the limits of possibilities of its transferability to other contexts of the global south, and why not also of the north. The UK, for instance, has great interest in the Brazilian model and finances the study of how it could be transferred to other contexts, especially Africa. It's one of the projects of our International Development Department, the capability that Brazil has to absorb experiences and lessons and organizations of social society could perhaps explain one of the main features that the Brazilian model dared to build, which is the connection between economic development and social development with joint processes from the political sphere, institutional political sphere, and social society. The capability of Brazil to build new, successful, innovative technologies are not being produced top down just by technocrats and specialists, and a political will that needs to be highlighted. This is important, but it's not enough. This model has been created in the collaborations, dialogues, partnerships in the democratic public sphere, the levels of association activism, as well as institutional partnerships in multiple actors, and sometimes diametrically opposed, is what creating a base social force that has its intersects with the political will to create a economic project that is not isolated from self-esteem of excluded societies, and this combination between micro and macro, bottom up and top down, the institutional, that points to the possibility of renew marginalized layers of the population and bring new protagonists, realizing this new process, the potential of economy, culture, and the people of the favelas is key, and demands policies and a commitment with development that without which our development would always be partial. Our studies show that organizations such as CUFA demonstrate this kind of competence to produce positive change with a work methodology that focuses simultaneously in the individual and community, uses art and imagination to stimulate collective action, and acts in urban frontiers through innovative partnerships in several different measures, such as reintegration of ex-inmates to their communities, the urban development workshops, theater and music that enlarges the perspective of life of individuals and societies that sometimes they think they have nothing to gain from life. These dreams from the young people of the favelas are integrated and absorbed within this model. And to combine dreams, aspirations, and development is key. Also to think what our agenda, the post-2015 agenda could build. All the actions are all systematized in this practical guide that we published, and we think could be a global resource to fight poverty which was conquered with so much struggle by our society. The urban space in Brazil presents us with multiple contradictory layers, at the same time exposed and hidden by their beauty and complex topography. The distance and intersections between its people, cultures, and geographies are basic and operate in multiple levels, all simultaneously perceptible to anybody who lives or visits Brazil. Brazil still has a divided culture, is immense social disparity, and that is very evident in the favelas where CUFA acts. Although Brazil has progressing a lot in that respect, Brazil is still telling a story where early death through homicide, poverty, and other issues have a address at this a part of this society. With the new report that compares for instance, 5 lowest income societies in Rio, they evidence that the favela is still the great gradient of inequality. The fact that you live in a favela decreases your income level with people from similar occupations that don't. For instance, people who live in a favela make 4.8 times less than people who have the same profession but don't live in a favela. The lack of maternal care still has a lot of fundamental role in the infant death, especially in infants younger than 5 years old. In the middle of this scenario, everywhere this inequality gradient is still compromising the perspectives of development of the poorest community, which are exposed to context adversities. And this is important to note. It's not just a problem for poor countries. This occurs everywhere, including some of the richest countries in the world, because the association of the global South and North is, when you start talking about inequality, they match a lot. So when we talk about the social space in Brazil, it's still a source of inspiration. Let's not forget that the crises and the inevitable retrocesses that Brazil may be experiencing always occur when we are amid deep change. Deep change provoke deep resistance, and they must be understood as part of a trajectory and not a final point. The hot climate of politics in Brazil that Brazil was able to build is walking alongside participation by the society, protests, and development that, from my point of view as a researcher, is productive and expresses the vitality of the Brazilian public sphere and its institutional stability, maybe one of its most important legacies of the last 20 years of political will in Brazil. This, at a certain point, contrasts with the cold climate that we observed in the north, the global north, for political social policies as well as civic participation. This is a contrast that is evidenced. Evidence is one of the greatest contracts of the early 21st century. How do you revert a fair society, just society that societies that are prioritize social growth with others that only prioritize finances? Brazil, in this respect, is a patrimony and a source of inspiration for the whole of human society. Along this work, we are guided by the concept of development as a human freedom. We try to emphasize the social capacity as well as the psychological society of the social subject to respond to moral and social challenges that still plague the human life that we all share. And I expect very much that the presence, global presence of actors such as CUFA and the exchange and inclusion of the social model may keep contributing to create a base of knowledge and practices that we can help us decrease inequality in our global epoch. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandra, for your participation. I will give the floor now to hear comments from Celso Ataide.
Bem, eu acho que vou falar em português.
I think I will speak in Portuguese. It's a right that I have. In this case, since I only have 7 minutes, I'd rather not start with so many, thank you so many people, because I would waste 3 minutes. And so I would like just to thank everybody present in person of my friend Patriota, and say that I will also speak very little here because I'm part of another panel later, but I would like to say that I'm very proud to know that we were studied by, or researched by London School of Economics for 3 years, in which we ended up being helped to systematize the whole building process of everything that we've built along throughout these 19 years of formal life. Although CUFA is a little older than that, formally though, that's the time that we count, so it's these last 19 years. At the same time that we feel very proud, I see this with a lot of concern, because at the same time that we need to interact as much as possible with the people that have the knowledge, the academics, we also need to build and produce knowledge so that we don't become dependent of other in order to build our process, since CUFA's discourse has always been, from the inception, to do it our way and never allow that the protagonism be from other people. So we think we can build a more equal society to as much as the people who suffer the impact of this will be the protagonists. So CUFA has been created from since a while back as part of this philosophy, this study of research called Data Favela, which helps even the government to present the numbers that were showed here, since we are the only research institute in the country that studies within this type of territory. And once again, we try to based on this experience with UNESCO, Itaú, and LSE, we're looking for partners that dominate down in the city this technology and this scientific knowledge, so that we then may create a business and at the same time make that the favela could do its own research and learn to do research, that the favela could apply its own questionnaires and elaborate and reflect on these questionnaires. So the end result of these studies, it's the fruit also of the favela thought. So if on the one hand, this is a reason for proud to be studied by the London School, at the same time, it's a reason for reflection so that we can start to learn to build our own research process. This research actually gave us a lot of other mechanisms so that we were able to realize who our references are. So I think that my coming here today, if today people ask me, Celso, who is your reference today in Brazil? I have several to mention. I could even mention some here, like Preto Zezé, Nega Giza, Raul Santiago, René Silva, Bem Cultura, Gesseu Darismo, Galdino, Marciele, Gefran, Thales, just to mention a few. These are people who live in the space, where these people are the ones who guide me, and not anymore the people in the city. People from the city integrate themselves to this family, but actually we're the protagonists of this new model today. CUFA and this global action is great news, because we are showing what favela always knew. Today in the USA here, we are launching our Global Week, which is nothing other than a show in the area of cinema, books, shows, and paintings, and that we are showing in galleries. All that was made by the favela, but this was always being done. But people, not always, people realized or gave it its due value to what was being made. Carnival is an example of something that favela has always realized. And then when that became a thing of everything, when the man from the city doesn't go or starts to look at the carnival as something that gives you money, that becomes something that belongs to all. And the protagonists at that point start to push the carts and these parties, and all the wealth that's generated goes to the man from the asphalt. So they legitimize what we do, and at the second moment they take that to themselves. It's part of the culture of the ones who appropriate. They believe it's their right, and the effective day it becomes their right to the point that we also understand that it's also not our right. It was a big war in the beginning between CUFA and all the members of CUFA that did not want London School studying us, because it was always that model. The university, the thinkers are the great scientists. Favela is a great laboratory, and we, the people from the favelas, as with an absolute majority of blacks, are always the lab rats, and always with a very open heart and a lot of goodwill. They always think and still think that way. So we obviously, and not everybody is like this. Our partner Marlove from UNESCO, from a long time ago, we knew she didn't shared in that kind of philosophy. But even people who don't think that way, there's a daily exercise of self-affirmation with our position and demote them to change their position. So we only accept to be part of the study, since we would also be part of the process of the creation of all these studies. So what was therefore presented here today in a very brief manner, it's an anthropologic process, and which institution and participants were members from beginning to end. Well, I have 7 minutes, but I won't speak to 4, and I will very briefly mention here 6. Well, favela is in here. I'm going to talk 10 minutes now. It's our party. So very briefly, although I have another part for the discussion, but I'm just going to introduce myself since I have 4 minutes, no, 1 minute. My name is Celso Taide. I am from Rio de Janeiro, from the Fluminense lowlands. My parents separated when I was 6 years old. From my mother was an alcoholic, as well as my dad. Both are deceased, and my mother decided to go live in the streets then, and I went, and my brother went to live on the streets alongside her. And from 6 years to 14 years old, I used to literally live in the streets. That's where I was educated. That's where I used to eat, go to the bathroom. That's where I was able. That's where I started to learn and to know about entrepreneurship, which was robbing people and put my hand inside the purses of the rich women who would walk near me. And the time passed, and I went to live in a public shelter, and then I started to live in this shelter. And after a certain time, I went to live at a favela named Favela do Sapo, Frog Favela, which is in Senador Camará neighborhood. And then I started to fight I think we started at favela. From that point on, I started to provide services to the drug traffic. I was never involved completely in traffic. I was just one of the people who used to bring the money to the police, or I would buy bread for the drug trafficker's wife. I used to make my money in in the middle of this promiscuity to survive. After some time, I decided to be a revolutionary, and I found out that my revolution wouldn't go too far if I didn't become qualified. Since I didn't have an education, I haven't graduated to this day, but I had some assets and I had some dreams that I needed to to advance. And part of this dream was to make people from the asphalt actually have a voice, because we always heard that the blacks were lazy, when we know that Brazil was the last country to abolish slavery. And until not long ago in Brazil, racism was the official government policy. It wasn't your option to be a slave or not. The state defined that you were due to your skin color. So today, we're here talking from this microphone that reverberates to some countries, and making the people who do what I do in my country, I'm not the only one. I'm part of a great family, a family that fights, as a matter of fact, even. That if we're here today making this noise with a positive agenda, we're not here to complain about Brazilian problems or favelas problems. We're showing that the favela produces, and that needs to be acknowledged, that the favela has an agenda that needs to be recognized and heard by the government, society, and corporations. And if we really effectively want that our country change and the world change, we need to really not to pretend or propagate the equality discourse, because if the wealth of this world are not generated and shared with the favelas, certainly we will keep dividing the consequences of poverty that elite has been creating in the world.
Very well spoken, Sir Celso. It was a pleasure to hear you. I would like now to give the floor to our guest, Maria Concepcion Steta, expert on social protection and works of the World Bank. Concha? I would like to skip thanking everyone, but I would like to thank on behalf of the World Bank and on behalf of myself the opportunity that I have here to be in this wonderful delegation. I would like to speak my Portuñol, the language that unites us in Latin America, because this theme reinforces my passion for the personal and professional lives. And if I speak in English, I try to pronounce correctly, and it's not good because I really want to share what I want to share with you. This acknowledgement is not only for the opportunity to be here, it's also, Surgeon Sandra, by the reading of it, your experience, underground sociability and the culture of favelas. It's very good for me, especially when it comes what has done to my growth, to look at my context, remember how privileged I am, and with this intention, with the poor change my life, that goes be so it was touching to me, and I felt that now this is my life project, and that determines my being in different contexts and different platforms. Thank you very much. And the interpreter would like to say that was Spanish. Besides, and she's a Portuguese interpreter, urban poverty, to understand how social production networks work in the city. Now it's the main agenda for the World Bank in this year. Therefore, this seminar, this intervention model by CUFA in the Rio de Janeiro favelas are very important for our institutional global learning. And when we talk about Rio de Janeiro, we have to remember that it's the second largest city in Brazil, but it's also the third largest city in Latin America. So social protection agenda, why? A few data until 2025, it's going to be the fourth GDP's part. The cities can be poor or rich, but what concerns us that at the rural level drops if there's more poverty. The rate on poverty, on global poverty, has increased significantly from 16 to 23% between 1990 and 2012. That has to do to the immigration that brings a lot of the poor to the city, but not only urban poverty, but also inequality. The urban areas generate more inequality. We have a distorted view of what we understand about cities, accumulation of richness and high speculation, a lack of planning, and more cities are segregated and divided. A few data of urban poor in a few world cities. Let's say mobility, 41% of income of poor population Kampala destined to transportation so that people can get to their work. Housing, 70% of urban population in sub-Saharan Africa live in favelas in plastic shanties without services. 1 in 500 people in favelas have access to bathrooms, and they're always under risk. 40% of urban growth in Senegal are in high-risk areas. Urban poors, they migrate. For example, 30% Misiglos of Indonesia, when they were interviewed in research, they were not found 6 months later after the first interview for a second interview, and scale economies due to urban agglomeration. When it comes to work and housing and transportation makes it much harder. We can give more information, but it's important to have social protection for the urban poor. Our models are not good enough for the cities. Let's consider social consideration. Poverty cover was 23%, and now in urban areas is only 16%. In Latin America, where social programs have a cover for the larger poor population, same happened. 49% of urban poor receive one social protection program. On the other hand, in rural areas where we have more cover of about 63%. Therefore, this is a big challenge on urban areas. And how do you identify and select poors? So this program is very good. Second challenge is the services. Attention to services, quality of services, including not only education, health, basic services, but also transportation. A third challenge that we have to mention, what intersectorial, institutional coordination, which are determining factors in cities, and protagonisms, interfederation municipalities, economic sector, private and public sectors, and NGOs and social movements. We still do not have solutions, and we have to build those solutions. International agencies, federal governments, state governments, and city governments, private institutions, NGOs, and urban social movements. We have to learn what works, what transforms territories, what transforms individuals, what transform development, because people can have their voices, they can be visible, they can have rights, they are citizens. Brazil is, again, one of the biggest role models of learning as you do. Brazil is a role model internationally with family stipend, and is a role model of eradicating poverty in less than 3 years. Minister Teresa has talked about the data, but this is possible intersectorially to develop a reality, and these are results that are measurable. Decreased human capital in the poorest, there's less child mortality, a better school frequency, and also the opportunity of poor families to generate their own income. And I had the opportunity to have many examples in many states and municipalities within the country. Now, the CUFA model, supported by Minister Sander, will be interfere efficiently on high crime areas, and they give us a trajectory. We are now learning how to do it. Give this a holistic view so that the urban poor can be integrated in the context and territories. And Sandra invites us with her experience through her book to give a face to the urban poor, so that they're visible, they're subject of their own lives, they have projects with their dances, with their voices, with their symbols, creating bridges, building their only life trajectory. CUFA's experience will be a model to follow of good practices. Their definition, their institutional methodology of intervention, and also the challenges, so that they can be sustainable. Therefore, we celebrate at the World Bank the launching of Global CUFA, and I'm sure that that our work of social protection will support other countries where we work, from Mexico, my country, to Tanzania. Thank you very much. And the interpreter would like to apologize again. She's not a Spanish interpreter, but she did her best. Thank you.
Today, as special guests, the Director of UN Habitat in New York, Yasmina Dacta, as well as the Special Envoy on Use of the UN Secretary General, Ahmed Al-Hawendawi. Please, I will pass the floor to Dr. Yasmina Dacta. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting UN Habitat to this timely and highly relevant seminar on urban poverty and development in Brazil, the periphery at the center of the post-2015 agenda. And I like these last words. I think that they are very powerful. And indeed, like early on, His Excellency the Ambassador of Brazil talked about the new post-2015 agenda. I guess we should say now 2030 agenda for sustainable development and the sustainable development goal. And at the heart, at the core of that agenda is really that it is an integrated but also an inclusive agenda. And I think that is a word that we should always be, of course, being mindful of. And indeed, we are very, ourselves, UN Habitat, very pleased that one of the agenda, and His Excellency the Ambassador has also mentioned it, the Goal 11, on making cities and human settlements not on inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And also, that is very important, and I believe a big departure from the MDGs, which perhaps didn't emphasize those very crucial points if we were to achieve sustainable development. And my colleague from the World Bank has spoken about the global situation on urban challenges around the world, so I will not go too on that, but just to say that UN Habitat is the UN agencies that is that has the mandate to promote socially inclusive, economically productive, and environmentally sustainable cities. And of course, in order for us to achieve that, and I think all the efforts here and what the CUFA is doing, is that more research and data availability is also key to monitor progress, because we often have goals, and the MDGs, we had some success, but sometimes we found out that we could not also monitor what was going on because the data was not available. So I think more research and data availability is key here, and I think it's important to keep that in mind, because in fact the agenda will be adopted next week, but I think the real there are some real efforts that will go after to try to come up with indicators that are relevant and that can be adapted to different contexts. Because also one of the particularity of the agenda is that it is universal, and indeed what is happening in Brazil, in Rio, can be good lessons learned for the rest of the world, and not just the South, but also the North. I just would like to say that, of course, UN Habitat has been always involved in improving the lives of city dwellers, and particularly slum dwellers around the world. And I will just mention, in view of the time, we don't have, there is a participatory slum upgrading program that we have, which is actually also is active in the Caribbean and in African country. Now, just to say, and thank you, Ambassador, also for mentioning Habitat 3 conference, which is the first, we believe, global conference that come after the post-2015 agenda next year. So just to say that I would like here just to say that my colleague from the World Bank spoke about urban development globally, but in Latin America, actually, the continent is one of the most urbanized continents. And is that, as it has been highlighted, what is one of the core issues and to address in order to reduce poverty is indeed the inequality in the region, which is also causing this reality. And as Her Excellency Minister Campelo has illustrated to us what Brazil has actually achieved in alleviating this poverty, and along a few countries there. Unfortunately, in some others, poverty has increased. But also in the countries that have alleviated poverty, some of the challenges is to maintain that, so that people don't fall back into poverty. So that is also a key issue. I know I don't have much time, so now I'm going to be a bit more specific and just give a few highlights. I think there is here a convergence of ideas and principles. And I would like to highlight some of what we are doing, which go in line with what has been said so far. And for example, I'd like to talk about the Latin America regional community of practices on urban poverty. And earlier this year, along with the Mexican Minister of Social Development, the World Bank, and the Global Fund for Cities Development, UN Habitat organized an international seminar for urban poverty to better understand the comprehensive approach to the challenge of addressing urban poverty and aiming at identifying the necessary institutional actors and elements for the design and implementation of a national strategy on urban poverty. And during the seminar, a regional community practice on urban poverty was established with the objective to improve attention to urban poverty and to ensure exchange on good practices of inclusion and access to social rights, and will operate as an open network for at least 2 years. I can't conclude without talking about the Rio Plus Social, if I hope I said it right. And of course, this is a habitat cooperation with the city of Rio de Janeiro. I would like to highlight that Rio de Janeiro is actually home to our own regional office for Latin America, and we're very proud of that. And this program, just to talk about, to highlight very briefly, the most important achievement of the program so far has been the creation of a management model based on the participatory consolidation and analysis of information on the territories, so that coordinated action involving the municipal, state, and federal government, civil society, the private sector, and the other sector can act in a coordinated manner. Others is also the addressing,
Outros também,
application, etc. There are a number of examples. I would like to conclude and to say thank you very much for having us here, and we hope to continue interacting and learning from each other. Again, thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much. Dear Ahmed, the floor is yours, but before I pass to you, I will just mention that you've been a great friend of all the Brazilian initiatives. You've been with us, with the Secretariat of Youth many times in Brazil. So it's my special pleasure to have you here with us today.
Of course. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Minister Campello, and Your Excellency Ambassador Patriotto for your leadership and to the government of Brazil. I must admit, I mean, this is a very unique experience, a very unique model that we have today. But also, I congratulate Brazil for bringing an issue that there are still like many problems with inequality, etc. And you are very comfortable in presenting that, sharing your knowledge, saying what works, saying what challenges you are still facing. And I think as we transition to the Sustainable Development Goals, there is nothing more important than really learning about what works in these models and trying to share that experience candidly, not only to show the success, but also to acknowledge some of the areas and the challenges you face. And I think that's, I also want to congratulate you for amazing progress you have made, for the partnership, and for also the CUFA, for the brilliant work you have been leading. I must say, Your Excellency as well, you have championed this, and congratulations for being a young entrepreneur and the entrepreneur now and founding this alliance. What I want to share with you probably has something related with the experience of young people in many of these places. And probably one of the things I learned very well, that a starting point to work with the slum areas, let's say, is to remove the stigma and not to stigmatize young people in these areas. I visited, anyone from Kenya, from Mathara? It's a slum area very close to Nairobi. I visited Mathara almost 2 years ago, and I joined young people for a day there. And it's a slum area. Actually, it's the second biggest slum area close to Nairobi. And I just want to share the story about the group I met with there. They were checking Google, and some of the young people, around 11 of them actually, they were checking Google Maps, and they were trying to find the slum area in Google Maps. And guess what? They couldn't find it. It's there, but it's almost like a black hole. So they couldn't find any address for them. They couldn't recognize anything. And their starting points, they said, the world is becoming a small village, but we don't have even an address in this village. And we're invisible for the world, even for Google. So what they decided to do, and that's their initiative, by the way, and later on, UN Habitat, they supported them, they decided we are going to put this 250,000 people living in Matara, we are going to put them in the map. So they did a mapping exercise for the entire slum area. And they put everything, all the services, the clinics, the police stations, everything, they put it there. And they started dividing it. And from that mapping, they managed to put an address for every single home or little units there. And did you know how much that costed them? The cost of that exercise was only $5,000 to give an address for 250,000 people. Why I'm talking about the stigma here? Because if there is a way to solve some of the most pressing challenges we have today, it's about acknowledging that communities, they can solve also their own problems. And to acknowledge this, what we call it the asset-based approach, is to recognize the assets in the community itself. Now, when it comes to young people and youth issues, we're talking about the world today with the largest generation of young people in the history. 2 weeks ago, I was in India. 800 million people in India under 35 years of age. Can you imagine? 800 million. Brazil is a country full of young people. I was joking with my friends in India. I was telling them, probably the only way for you to cater for 800 million is to bring another India to cater for them, because there are so many. And that's not possible. So the smart way here is to partner with them and to empower them so they could do it themselves. You should not think of them only as beneficiaries or as liability or as the problem. I think what you are showing us today, that this is the way forward. And this is very much relevant to the SDGs, to put young people and people at the center. There's simply no way to achieve the SDGs without engaging young people in the implementation as equal partners. Some people still want to think of young people as beneficiaries or as the problem. And for me, just going forward, it's impossible to achieve these goals without having partnership with young people. So the situation of young people in the favelas and in many parts of the world, I would like to zoom out a bit to talk about what we learned from your experience. We should apply a similar model, if it's not the same one, in working with these communities around the world, and particularly with young people. I have learned a big deal from interacting with young people in slum areas around the world. And in slums, you recognize that the social capital there and the ability for young people of coming together and dedicating time, energy, resources, and solving some of these problems is unbelievable. But I think development practitioners have to learn that. So I think that what my take from this panel is not about what London School learned from their experience and the 3 years they spent there, or about UNESCO, it's about the United Nations. It's about the experience that you are showing for the entire world today of changing the approach of working with some of the, it's not only the favelas, but it's even around the world, how we can learn and changing the approach of not stigmatizing young people there and not to think of them as a problem. A last point here, and that was from a visit to Rwanda just recently. While we are recognizing the potentials and the assets and the talents in the community, we have to think very strategically about how to create more public spaces for them. And the question of public spaces probably was not brought up yet in our panel, but for me is one of the areas where I still think of the wasted potential of young people and is by not creating enough public spaces for them. There is a very good project, and again, it's championed by Habitat in Rwanda, and I hope that we could replicate it in other places. We call it the one-stop shop center for young people, where they could find all the services they need, from health services to sport facility and other facilities at the same space. It's called One-Stop Shop. I invite you all to check that. My last point here is, you know, you keep hearing at the United Nations about leaving no one behind. And my own definition of leaving no one behind in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is not about leaving no one behind in delivering services to them, but leaving no one behind of being part of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It's about making sure that we bring every individual, every single talent around the world to be part of achieving the goals, not only benefiting from them. And I just want to correct that because, again, young people are too many to cater for, half of the world population. In Africa, they will continue to grow over the next 40 years. So we have to change that approach. We have to recognize the talents and the assets in the communities. We have to understand that we have no magic stick, and there was never one actually, and there will never will be one. And the only way to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by recognizing these talents, these assets, being a little bit more humble in the way we approach these communities, and understanding that the only way forward is by working with young people. And I think that's the slogan of the United Nations. The Secretary General always talk about not only working for young people, but also working with young people in partnership with them. So I would like to thank you again and the government of Brazil for bringing this experience here to the United Nations. And this is the second time we discussed CUFA. I remember a few months ago, we had a similar conversation. And I would say, as we move forward to the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to continue engaging in these similar conversations so we'll be able to truly leave no one behind. Once again, thank you very much. Congratulations. And I'm so proud of all my colleagues who contributed to this, our partners in London School, and for everyone who contributed in capturing, in a humble way, I would say, what we could learn from your own experience. So thank you very much, and wish you all the best and all success in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, and all the participants in our panel. Antes de terminar,
Before concluding, I would like to say that today we are launching the practical guide for social development for the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, which is the bottom-up social development of favelas of Rio de Janeiro. This practical guide is in the back to your left or right. You can take one when you leave this event. And it's also available as a web tool at the London School of Economics website as well as the UNESCO site. I'd like to also give a special word of thanks to the MDF, Minister Teresa Campillo, CELSO, which were key partners so that we could be here today. CUFA, needless to say, without its wonderful team under the leadership of CELSO, Preto Zezé, our dear partners, and finally, a special greeting to Ambassador Patriota. You are our mission here in the United States, in the nation, and Teresa Ribeiro, who her professionalism and great enthusiasm made possible these events this week. Thank you very much, Adriana, on behalf of UNESCO and my own. And I would like then to close this panel and thank the privilege of being moderator here. And Celso, I'd like to give you a final word to you and your friends from CUFA. I think that capacity to think large, a lot of people have that. The capacity to realize big deeds is not for many. It's very few who can do that. What you did here today, to use a word that comes to my mind in English, it's really remarkable. I think it's extraordinary. It's worth of note, and you believe all our greetings. And I would like to ask for a big hand of applause to the friends of CUFA. And I would like to invite you as well to our next panel, which will happen right after this one. Please remain with us.
Foi. Continua. Abriu. Eu gostaria de convidar, por favor.
I would like to invite, please, Beatriz Azeredo, Director for Social Responsibility for TV Global, Celso Ataide, founder of the Unified Center for Favelas Negajiza, Preto Zezé, Nilceia Freire, Ford Foundation Director for Brazil, and Elena Sicarullo from CUFA, please.
Nossa, eu não fui almoçar, mas foi uma bobagem. Está me dando uma zonzeira. E nem me lembrei. A Ana vai arranjar uma.
Não, tem um biscoito aqui.
Ah, sério. Eu queria uma coisa. A Patrícia está sentada ali atrás, ela deve saber onde tem uma barrinha para eu comer. Está me dando uma zonzeira que eu não fui almoçar.
Ai, não, nem fala.
Não, fica aí na frente enquanto eu como. Giza, tem um nome em plena ONU, Giza.
Era para lugar nenhum. Falou tão bonitinho você, né? Como sempre.
Vocês merecem.
Aí você só não perdeu. A história do Buio perdi. Começa com o chinês amanhã, sabe cantar. From Brasil, aqui e você, from da onde?
Ana, eu vou aceitar as frutas. Ai, tudo bom, gente? Você conhece?
Vamos trabalhar? Vamos trabalhar?
Trabalhava no menu do Brasil.
As pessoas vão embora.
Vamos. So we will start. Celso, contigo, começa.
Começa.
Celso, aqui é só pra gente dizer tchau.
So let's start. Celso with you. Celso will start.
We are starting the panel again. Pode dizer.
Começa a falar você e depois você me apresenta.
Não, mas eu não posso coordenar o teu painel, esse é teu. Please take your seat, my friends. We are starting the second panel. Please. Please, I'm asking everybody to take the seats, please. Celso, vai lá. Aperta teu microfone e vai.
Bem, gente, boa tarde.
Very well. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. Right, we're going to start now the ceremony of official launch of CUFA, Global CUFA. My initial speech as a mediator is based on the last word here at the table when he was talking about experiences in Nairobi. And that's exactly where the reason is for which we decided to bring CUFA to New York. And the reason why we decided to bring or the launch of Global CUFA here from this mic due to the power and the reverberation of what happens in the center of the world, New York, and the power that this microphone wields of reverberating. We understand that whether in Harlem or Brooklyn or the Complexo do Alemão, City of God, or the other favela that he mentioned, I don't remember the name, but any slum in the world, there will always be differences between the people who live there. There will always be differences among the favelas, slums from one country to the other, or even slums within the same city. But if there's a social difference, there is the need for intervention, whether it's by the government or the people. Therefore, when we decide to develop a process to value the CUFAs in the 17 states that we are present, is from that moment on that based on our relationship with the Brazilian mission that would interface automatically with the missions of the other countries. We could not only open the possibility of a higher integration with the CUFAs of these other countries, as well as we would open the possibility, create the possibility to open new fronts of work to export this technology, because in our understanding, if the global solutions may also influence the solutions for each territory, so the experience that he just mentioned certainly could be an inspiration for new solutions in another country. That's why the local CUFA thinks that way, and that's how we intend to have an impact everywhere we go, as well as impact anybody who hears what we're trying to do.
Perto que está muito baixo.
I'm going to speak closer to the microphone. One moment, please. I'm going to ask one of the individuals who is also a CUFA founder, Negajiza, to speak with you of the importance of this moment in time for her and to talk about her life and her CUFA experience. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Negajiza. I would like to say that it's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for being here. And to be here today, it reminds me of CUFA during a few years ago when we used to hold meetings in a very tight space in the Madureira, a neighborhood in Brazil, and this is a very emotional moment for me, not only by the institution's evolution, but and for the experience that we have acquired, but to notice that each action from us, wherever we go, is an advance, and besides, we are aggregating new individuals to our fight. CUFA is an institution that was born, and we never thought that we would reach where we have reached today with dialogues with different partners, which brought growth to the institution. And every day where I work, where we follow up with the youth that come to us, as a woman, 38-year-old woman with 2 children, a boy and a girl, I noticed that how much it is important to go to think beyond the social, how important it is to commit beyond to what you believe, because challenges come every day. We have a lot of challenges, sometimes challenges that serve to dismay us, and others to wake up to what's around us, and this brings us strength. When CUFA can gather, as Celso spoke previously, people, individuals that we brought to the Global Week that are role models to us in Brazil, that have dialogues with different institutions and other governments and NGOs, to show that we really recognize work, other work, and we emulate ourselves in other social revolutionary work with different profiles, but we're all speaking the same language nonetheless, which strengthens our work and strengthens also the work that we want to develop that from here on our institutions' daily operations. I can see how we can speak of small projects. There's so much going on. We talk about social, political, and economic issues using various tools such as sports, culture, arts, audiovisual operations, so we can have dialogues with different individuals with different attitudes, and we can manage their lives. At Rio de Janeiro's CUFA, where I work, we host many different individuals. So we are a channel for hosting different individuals. So our work, daily work, such as our social and sports and teachers departments, and whatever we're learning, we're taking to them, to our daily work. I particularly have always believed in social projects. I've always dedicated myself. I come from a place where we were part of a land invasion. We fought with families for land, for families who did not have where to live. And this brought me a lot of growth and a lot of taught me how to face reality and to know what I want for my future. So I think CUFA really realizes my heart's desire. It's a life mission and a life lesson as well. And I learn on a daily basis. It's an experience that will expand throughout many years in my life, and my satisfaction is to see that my commitment to CUFA really influences a lot of individuals. So this experience here today will be very good for us. Each CUFA country will go back to their countries with more commitment and more strength, and with more certainty of what we want for the future in the next 20 years. Thank you so much. Well, we cannot do anything alone, so we have to thank a lot of partners that have strengthened us throughout the years, not only UNESCO, and whoever believed in us, crazy people. We didn't even believe in ourselves. So other crazy organizations and individuals believed in us. Another partner that has always believed in us, even in more difficult or challenging times. A lot of people thought we're a bunch of criminals or only individuals that were trying to exist or survive, and they believed in us. So it's fair that they're here with this panel. So this marks the next 19 years of CUFA. Bia Zeredo from Global Television, Brazil. Thank you, Celso. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here to represent on behalf of TV Global at this time. TV Global is a partner, is the main CUFA's partner when it comes to social responsibility. I can say that we share the same dream: inclusion and social inclusion and transformation. Taking into consideration the limitations of each organization, our tool is social mobilizing to to make the dream come true. And our main focus is education. TV Global is watched on a daily basis in more than 100 million families, and we use our strength to focus on nuclear agenda themes for development in Brazil: education, social inclusion, diversity, health, quality of life, and crime. While we're here, for example, at this time, we initiate a campaign to fight against religious intolerance, and we have a documentary about it right in the eve of national mobilization for respect for any religion. Besides the talent of our professionals, journalists, and entertainment, we always strive to look for the best partners to have the best results for our actions. UNESCO, since 2005, has united forces with TV Global, with Child and Hope, which is 30 years old, and is a campaign to mobilize Brazilian society to protect the rights of children and youth, and it's a privilege to have UNESCO as a partner in this campaign. Within this trajectory, in each theme chosen, we always have social organization partnerships. That's how CUFA and Celso Ataide came into our lives. At the front of CUFA, Celso has a very charismatic leadership. Since the beginning, 2000, I wasn't working at TV Global, but Rafael, who is here with us, is a witness of this work and partnership. So since then, CUFA has been developing with our help important projects such as street basketball, National League, favela trophies, and also the documentary Children in Traffic. So it's really exciting to follow up with this trajectory, which is fantastic, of more than 19 years of existence. In a moment such as this one, in the eve of the sustainable movements, it's the best place to be here is here. And I would like to invite all of you to watch our contribution for this very important moment. It's a video to tell the world what we know for a long time. CUFA is an authentic force for the civil society in Brazil. It has an important role in the fight for a better and less unequal country. Before pressing play the video, I would like to give a message to CUFA and Celso. Celso, never forget of your first motto, CUFA, doing our way. Look what you have achieved. Congratulations.
Rio de Janeiro, known in song as the city of beauty and of chaos. Madureira is sliced up by 3 train lines, and there are many ways in and out. But to hold the neighborhood together, there's an overpass. What looks from a distance to be one more raised roadway is actually a bridge to the world. Air Depot could have been just another victim of the violence that kills 82 people a day in Brazil. Half of these are young, and 77% are black.
Eu passava pelo viaduto, passei diversas vezes e nunca percebi, nunca tive esse olhar de olhar para dentro do viaduto e ver o que tinha lá dentro.
Subtitles.
Yet, but under the bridge, a revolution was taking place.
Esse viaduto, para mim, ele representa uma parte significativa da minha vida, porque foi que eu me formei como pessoa, como gente. Ele foi a minha casa, literalmente a minha casa, onde eu dormia, onde eu vivia, onde, em certa medida, eu sonhava.
Young people from various Rio favelas, led by the producer Celso Ataide and the rapper Emive Bill, were on the lookout for a space in which to express themselves. The underneath of the overpass became home to a weekly soul party, attracting people from all over the city. with those people came ideas that ended up as TV programs, films, festivals, and professional training courses.
A CUFA deixou de ser uma instituição e passou a ser grande movimento, na verdade.
Almost 10 years ago, CUFA showed the real lives of children and teenagers caught up in the drugs trade in its film Falcon, Traffic Boys. Award-winning both in Brazil and overseas, the documentary uncovered an army of lost young people.
A realidade da vida que o bagulho é doido.
And it's for this poor, black, favela-dwelling youth that CUFA creates opportunities.
Eu tava passando pela, que hoje é Cracolândia, ali no Cajueiro. Aí o cara falou, perdeu, neguinho, um assalto. Olhei pra ele, eu vi que ele tava meio drogado, eu falei, nem dei bola pra ele. Nisso que eu passei dele, ele taca uma parada em mim, tipo um bolo de papel. Eu falei, que isso? Aí eu abaixei no chão, me peguei e olhei. Aí curso gratuito na CUFA e tal, eu olhei aquilo. Aí eu falei, pô, vou guardar esse papel.
The Confederation of United Favelas, or CUFA, began in Rio's ghettos, aiming to be a force for social inclusion. These days, it mobilizes more than 300,000 young people a year throughout Brazil's 27 states. Supported by big business, research institutions, and the biggest broadcaster in Latin America, CUFA brings together different communities. And to highlight activities developed in favelas, CUFA set up the ANU Award. It recognizes those who work to improve people's lives in neighborhoods like these.
A Central Única das Favelas.
O projeto é da CUFA, Central Única de Favelas.
Rua da Central Única das Favelas em Madureira.
Daqui a pouco, os jogadores da Central Única das Favelas, a CUFA, vão encarar os grandes magos do basquete mundial.
Take the Favelas Cup, for example. A soccer championship involving 96,000 young people.
Acho que é muito importante você estar sempre contando com apoio, com ajuda, com incentivo. Acho que sozinho ninguém chega a lugar nenhum.
They're going to upgrade the facilities, you know, with more gear, more soccer balls. It's good for the kids, and I'm very happy for them.
Or look at Hutus, the biggest hip-hop festival in Latin America. You can see it in the Street Basketball League, in various cultural events, and in the way private companies have been encouraged to generate jobs in vulnerable areas.
Eu tô, assim, realmente me sinto privilegiada e honrada em estar aqui.
I'm so proud of you. You inspire me and so many other people. And hopefully people will see that you work so hard and are so positive and will want to do the same thing. Say CUFA! CUFA!
Just as Air Depot discovered the world through CUFA, CUFA wants your support to build bridges that bring this world closer to everyone. Whether in Rio de Janeiro, Mumbai, Nairobi or Manila, there are young people looking for the same opportunities. And they need to meet, because global problems can share common solutions.
A gente faz com um menino que entrou na CUFA e hoje é um homem e sabe de onde saiu e para onde vai.
O meu maior orgulho é ter conseguido juntar milhões de jovens que cresceram e continuam unidos, olhando para o mesmo horizonte, que é transformar a vida de mais jovens.
CUFA, because nobody meets if there's no one showing the way.
Não, eu acho que vale registrar, quer dizer, esse vídeo é uma...
This video is a joint production between CUFA Youth and TV Global, with the idea of protagonism of this youth, so it's a co-production. Thank you. Beatriz. And actually, the good partnerships can only result in this positive consequences. And someone now I would like to give the floor. She was always on our side. When there's no money on trips, she would give money. She would give us her shoulder when we sometimes needed to cry. Sometimes we were lost. We didn't know where to go. And she was there. This woman is a partner. She was always guiding us and telling us and showing the options we had so that we could know what to do. One more time. She had to be here because this is a very important moment. So now our partner, Malova. Well, what can I say at a time such as this one for me, who are the UNESCO Program Department Director in Brazil, who has an institutional responsibility to represent a UN agency at home, here at UN's home, with to really demonstrate CUFA, which is very important, the best made in Brazil to the world. CUFA has a capacity of action and is capable to go beyond the limits and combine dreams with realization.
I and UNESCO feel privileged for so many ways, have been a part of this history since the beginning, all the way back, and alongside TV Globo and Criança Esperança, or Hope for the Children show. We partnered with CUFA like over 15 years ago. We have been supporting the projects that we saw here at the CUFA, the Street Basketball League, all the basketball workshops, the urban bridge actions, this new wonderful innovation of Basinho dance. To be a partner with CUFA actually is to work in this magic of contributing to reduce inequalities, understanding that there's only one way to accomplish that. It's empowering people, creating opportunity, and transforming lives. This magical mix that we have been able to accomplish together, Celso, with all these wonderful people who are present, and unfortunately I cannot cite individually, but I've had a great joy to know them by name and know the entrepreneurial and transformative potential that all of you, my dear partners, have, and to know that a history like this is not something you create alone. It's something that combines many friendly hands united in the same direction. As a matter of fact, no human history is written without this, without many friendly hands united in the same direction. We at UNESCO, who have the privilege to advance alongside our partnerships from the favela and to learn with them the extraordinary resilience lessons, creativity and capability lessons, and above all, the creation of opportunities, we can only say that these lessons that challenge the world today, they are here with the incredible support from the Brazilian government, the permanent mission of Brazil at the UN to be shown to the world. And the film that we just saw says that very well. These are global problems that demand common solutions, and these solutions exist and are available. And CUFA, throughout the years, with its extraordinary capacity to build, as Professor Sanders said, the psychosocial scaffolding so that anybody who needs it, and insisting in an ethic of care, which is human ethics, overcoming the hardship of life, deserve doubtless that today all our words here are in the intent to admire, to show, display our admiration, and all you, the Zezé, Giza, and Celso, the work you do on the daily life and our opportunity to be your partner in this path. To all of you, thank you very much. And to say that in the 70 years of UNESCO and United Nations and the 30 years of Hope for the Children and the 19 of CUFA, we should get ready to work hard for the next 100 years from the favela to the world. Congratulations. Thank you, Marlova. Well, we also invited somebody to be part of this table here, and initially she wouldn't be a part of the panel, but this work of this Global Week that we closed today, not here, because after this, the closing is going to be a carnival samba block over at CUFA at Times Square. Whoever wants, you have to get your shirt with the organization and join us. But we did not bother to get a permit, so you run the risk of being arrested. So this is a crazy agenda because it's a 20-plus events in 1 week in several places, and the person who is managing all this, if we already loved her before, we love her a lot more today. And she entered CUFA, joined CUFA at a moment where 18 years ago it had quote system, although we weren't racist, but in order to keep our identity, we created a quote system of 10% for white people. Which, that's true. And in Brazil, she's not considered, in Brazil, she is considered white, at least light-skinned, and she wasn't able to join, so she had to wait a while until somebody left so she could join CUFA, and after she joined, she assumed, took her place, and today she realized her first international production, so she didn't want to come here either to this place, to this panel, because as a producer, she likes to produce. She doesn't like to speak, but we forced Elaine to be a part and give her contribution here at the table, not producing, but speaking this time. I'm glad he warned you that I'm not good at speaking. I really like to be in the background. I'm very nervous here, but everything will work out. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to realize this Global Week. I have been following Celso's and CUFA's trajectory for a long time before he even joined CUFA, through the books he wrote, through the films they produced, and I was always loved that a lot. And although I am a favela dweller, for him, I didn't have the profile of the institution. I have light skin and light eyes. He already vetoed me many times from speaking to put a black person ahead of me, but I always thought this was of a grandeur and struggle and the understanding of a cause which I did not only came to realize 100% when I started working with them on the daily life and walking the streets with them and realizing projects with them. Celso and CUFA, their agenda is of protagonism, entrepreneurship, dialogue between all these problems around now among nations to the world, to show the world what we need and get from the world what we can touch. I was not ready for this speech, but I think this is a moment of interaction, mine and our consecration, to see that I'm really striving for a cause with CUFA after almost 10 years working to that effect. But that's it. I think I am a case for CUFA too. I come from the favela. I also had a lot of hardship, endured a lot of hardship to get to where I am. But because I have a light skin, I had some privileges along the way. I think I'm also a case for CUFA to be here and to be able to be a part of this work and contribute to the Global Week.
Elaine, obrigado.
Elaine, thanks. And actually, what makes you deserve this space is the fact that you're completely aware that although you are from the favela, when two people from the favela, one is white, one is black, and they go to the asphalt, number one keeps being favelado because from the favela because he has the color of poverty. The other one, although he's from the favela, but because he's white, he has the color of power, and they are perceived differently. To know this and not reproduce this thought and deserve our respect and our love, and everything has its time, and this is the best stage that you could have. Moving right along, when we were talking in the back, we wanted to be revolutionaries, so what we wanted to do was put fire to buses and fight everybody in the street. Nobody was good, only CUFA was good, everybody was wrong, and only CUFA was right. We didn't know where to go, and we didn't want money from anybody because everybody was wrong, up till we started to do some things with Ford Foundation, and from there on, the Ford Foundation never let us go, and we never let them go. And I hope we can keep doing work here in North America as well, and also as we couldn't leave out of our discussion today, the launch of CUFA Global institution has been our partner throughout these years, and now with the presidency of the institution in Brazil, of a friend and partner, ex-state minister in Brazil, and who used to, when we used to do some work in the women area with the ministry where she used to be the minister, I thought she was a bit too pushy. She wasn't too aligned with the government. She was more aligned with what she thought was right. So in the same manner, the oppositions don't say no to what's wrong. They say no to what is. The employees sometimes do the same thing. And this woman, as a minister, you as a minister used to follow what you believe, which was not necessarily what your government wanted to do, although it was the Lula government. But the differences are a natural thing, and you use to fight until you prevail your ideas, or else why would you be a minister? And that deserves my respect, and I think this respect will last forever. Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to repeat or reiterate what everybody said before me. This is a privilege to be able to be here alongside CUFA in this moment of the official launch of CUFA Global, or Global CUFA. That is something that makes me very proud and makes me very happy to be able to be here through Ford Foundation. I'm not just talking here on my behalf personally, but I'm also representing our president, Darren Walker, who is somebody who, when I came to him and put this perspective to him of opening a global CUFA office in New York, he immediately supported the idea and wanted to give his contribution. This week, CUFA invaded the Ford Foundation headquarters here in New York, and I would like to tell you that since I joined the foundation in 2011, this was one of the most beautiful moments I lived within the Ford Foundation. The Ford Foundation has offices in 10 different countries around the world, besides the headquarters here in New York. These 10 countries, not by chance, are all in the southern hemisphere, and not by chance are countries that today are undergoing difficulties, strife, not only in the poverty area, but a lot more in the area of violence, political repression, and Ford is therefore in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. As member of this network in the Global South, I always had this dream that I share with my colleagues. One of my colleagues from the headquarters here, Graciela Selaimi, who directed all the creation of this process that brought us here. greeting Gracie. So we always had, as a starting point, our work in Brazil, having a starting point, our work in Brazil, we always had this dream, I would say, which would be to bring the social technology developed in Brazil, not only by CUFA, but other partners, so that we could enable the sharing of this technology, of social technology with the Northern Hemisphere, to show that our contribution that the southern countries have to give from the point of view of cultural development, including economic contribution, have a different outlook over regarding the economic contribution that the southern countries have to make to the northern countries. We would like to again say that I am totally gratified, and to thank on behalf of my president, Darren Walker, the opportunity that I have to do this work. When in 2011 I was part of the selection, I was a candidate to be the representative of the Ford Foundation in Brazil. There were 260 candidates, and I'm not saying that to brag. It's to show that the foundation is a place that everybody covets. And I decided to run, and when I was chosen, a friend of mine asked me, "You say you're going to go work for the Ford Foundation? Why?" I said, "You know what happens? I'll be able to do over there what I always like to do, which is to support good projects that could help advance social justice, and they will pay me for that. That work I would even do for free." So that's how I got to meet CUFA Celso Nega when I was part of the Lula administration. I'm very proud of having been a part of that government, of that administration for 7 years. Therefore, I had the chance to live with people like Celso and Nega and to learn a lot from them. So I only have here to say that this partnership, it's not just a chance partnership. It's a partnership that rises from common goals that are built from an understanding of the world that is shared, a shared world understanding that we see here on this table today. And this understanding is very important for me. It needs to be an understanding that where everybody has something to contribute. You cannot only discriminate or reject partnerships. We are here, the Ford Foundation, an organization, an American institution, alongside it, Global Network, TV, and UNESCO, and the representatives from CUFA. And this is what can transform the world without frontiers, without borders, but not only without geographical borders, but no borders from the perspective of human relations and how we can work together to effectively create the possibility of a new world without poverty, without hunger, a democratic world, and fair world. So congratulations to CUFA. I'm dying to go to the carnival after this, because I am from Carnival, from Rio, and I haven't been to Carnival for many years. I love the the commotion. And in closing, I wanted to do now at the end, which what I didn't do in the beginning, which is to greet especially a few people here. First of all, Minister Patriota. I just wanted to tell everybody that Minister Patriota is a super partner. It touches the bottom of my heart because he's also a feminist, convict feminist. So therefore, he was an indispensable partner when we were at the Secretariat of Policies for Women. Minister Patriota helped us immensely. Greet my dear friend, Minister Teresa Campelo. It's hard to be in your seat. I wanted to tell you, congratulations. And as always, with a friendly shoulder and a Ford Foundation to work in conjunction, my friend Idali. A lot of love, and I miss you very much.
Vamos estar. We'll always be together and united by this mutual friendship. My co-worker, Graciela Silaime, without whom I would have been able to do anything regarding this event. Another colleague that who's here, who is very dear to me, and today he's the head of a very important organization in Brazil, Attila Rock, who is leader of the Brazilian National Amnesty. And finally, last but not least, our dear CUFA colleagues, Marlova, my friend. We've been together on many discussions and projects, who is on behalf of the social aspect of global TV and has always supported the good ideas. Thank you so much, Beatriz, for your help and support to good ideas. And Celso, Preto, Zezé, Nega Giselaine, let's go ahead, always ahead. Thank you so much. So going forward with our conversation today. So, it's the CUFA Global Launches, so it's very important. And Minister Patriota is invited to be in the carnival samba groups in Brazil. He may be arrested, but it's okay. And I would like to acknowledge a few individuals who are very important to the development of this whole project, not only today, but the whole global week. Lígia Chaim, where everything has started. Daniele, Fabio Azeredo, Graciele. You already thanked her. Rafael Van Stadt, who is the guy who is 200 years, has been with CUFA for 200 years, so to speak. Has been there since the beginning as a CUFA member. Adriana, I don't even have to mention, she is our partner in heart and a person whom I met in Ceará washing cars. I went to speak with the Fortaleza mayor a few years ago, and I went to have my shoes polished, and there was this little kid who looked very poor and not very well dressed, which is to this day actually. But he was saying certain things that I couldn't understand, above average, and I invited him to be a member of CUFA. I had no idea what CUFA was, but I didn't either. But he joined it. And after he joined CUFA, he really helped revolutionize CUFA when he's part of a territory, which is the northeast of Brazil, who is it's part of one of the most poorest areas of Brazil. So he started to be the head of CUFA, International CUFA, and he will take the position of leader of CUFA, Global CUFA, and he helped us change CUFA. And the institution cannot have presidents in Rio and São Paulo because this powerful space that CUFA has in the country has to be shared with capitals of North and Northeast. And only a person who is from inside the country, or smaller cities in the countries, or poorer cities in the countries, can be a leader of CUFA. So Zezé is going to speak as the national chairperson of CUFA. And then we're going to show the success points of CUFA, and then we're going to have the last words. It's already evening, isn't it? So good evening. No, good afternoon, actually. It's still daytime. First of all, I would like to greet all our partners represented by Minister Patriota. He is a partner, a friend. And I was looking at our pictures, and on behalf of women, our two women friends here on the plenary, Marlova and our friend Yusea. And very briefly, what brought me to CUFA. CUFA is more than an organization, is more than just an NGO. CUFA is a feeling and emotion, and even though with all the projects and actions that we've had developed, I think the largest investment that we've made so far in Brazilian favelas have been emotions, touching hearts of individuals, because we believe that if they're encouraged and when they notice that they are protagonists of the needed changes in the territory, they start revolutionizing, whereas Zezé, he's not just an exception. And then we have other individuals join everywhere around Brazil, etc. So CUFA is also this permanent corridor of leadership and information, and a school of opportunities, the school of life that's building and assembling actually an army of former invisible individuals whom nobody believed in, or that nobody believed in them, because the city white man has his own codes. We're only seen as statistics for this white man and not as owners of our own destiny. So we can change all the hatred as a consequence of our invisibility. We can now express ourselves, our youth, even through violence. We could create channels to support our ideas and recognize the city as a partner even of our success, and not only as one that hurt us. And CUFA, even with all our difficulties and adversities in the favelas, we were able to build life. So CUFA, when we every time, when we have the corrections, when we in cell phones we put CUFA, it spells vida. So all my feeling, all my happiness, and I am very willing, and especially when it comes to CUFA's presidency, we have to always be prepared to be soldiers and generals. This is our motto. This is our method. The motto, do it our way, is really real for us. Thank you very much. I would like to thank also which other partners. Otherwise, this 1 week project wouldn't be developed. Partners such as FedEx, Vivondo, which is not only an event partner, but in many other projects in Brazilian favelas, Social Development Ministry, International Relations Ministry, and the mission. Minister Patriota, since he came into this mission, which was one more mission that he embraced. So we talked about racism and favela issues, and we spoke of our concerns of not being in the city, in the sense that we don't want the city to speak on our behalf. But we have matured, grown, so that resulted in our looking for partners, even millionaire partners, very rich partners, such as some who are here. And we needed them as partners so that they could develop projects in favelas and bring wealth, and not only talk about aesthetics, but also developing projects so that we could have more jobs and more entrepreneurs. If we can generate more wealth and improve the quality of life of the slums, we will advance and not just reproduce more poverty if we just go and take their money and use it elsewhere. We're talking about a country of 400.7 million people, in favelas. But if we take out a few slums, such as Rocinha, and say that these places are not favelas, so this number is not 14.5 million, but much more if we include these favelas that are not considered favelas anymore. We have to stop, therefore, to talk about people such as us as using euphemisms and not call us black. We're black because we have to think of these territories as poverty and places, and the favela is a favela. Wherever they see sadness, we see happiness. Wherever they see pressure and depression, we see opportunities. Therefore, there are researches that say that 90% of favela dwellers are happy, which means happiness is not related to wealth, because the poor usually doesn't commit suicide, and there's more suicide rates among the rich. So if happiness had a direct correlation with wealth, the rich wouldn't commit suicide. We've had a lot of partners from the city, but we've picked the ones who would understand our ideas. We're going to introduce, of the 21 fixed partners that we have, we selected 3 who helped our projects in the favelas. The 3 that I'm going to call are light-skinned, so we're not racist against or the white. We can be partners and even marry the white, but we cannot accept that their children or brothers or siblings or parents to have more rights than we do, because we do not intend to have an inversion of everything that has been done in this country. So we need equality in relationships so that we can say that we live in a just, a fair country. I would like to speak about what we've been developing in favelas when it comes to entrepreneurial projects by CUFA. CUFA has founded a holding company. So I left formally CUFA. Zezé is the head of CUFA, and then Francis Leite from Minas Gerais after him. And I'm going to lead the holding that owned by CUFA, and all the proceeds will be to fund the institution's projects. And we started to look for certain partners who had the same idea. And one of the And I'm going to invite Elias, who has 4.5 minutes to speak about social entrepreneurship. And Elias Tegiliani is from Minas Gerais, Brazil. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Elias. I used to be a street peddler, and I started my life selling manure on the streets. And now I am a business owner and a partner of an international Italian company, and I'm president of and founder of Group Donor and partner and founder of the Holding Favela, partner of CUFA. Social emancipation through entrepreneurship and work and generate income in an equal way in Brazil are very big challenges. In Brazil, training individuals so they can multiply the positive has to be continuous. The methodology that we created is to emancipate socially through work and entrepreneurship in areas of vulnerability, social vulnerability. PREME, such as what is to PREME is to train, fund, and encourage small entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, so they can grow and develop territory and generate more work and more income. Considering these informal entrepreneurial great business owners of the future, because informality is a good beginning for any big company. Such as an example, Ford Foundation, it started at a garage. Ford started at a garage, was informal. Bill Gates, when he was in his couch with a computer creating Microsoft, he was informal. Izara was seamless. So entrepreneurship is what is behind the world, because otherwise we would go back to the Stone Age without fire, because fire was invented by an entrepreneurial person. We are developing social entrepreneurship with great results, and we approximated the business world to these small entrepreneurial individuals, such as the Holding Favela, operating in many favelas in Brazil, with in partnership with the residents of favela. We have a new equipment to be a university to train these small entrepreneurs with methodologies, specific methodologies for social emancipation through entrepreneurship on the basis of the Brazilian pyramid. Situated in Pernambuco, where there's a lot of drought and poverty, and the first phase has 2,000 students generating social emancipation and income through work. A large challenge is technological, human, and financial resources, and respecting the environment. We are impacting millions of peddlers and entrepreneurs in favelas to socially emancipate through work with Doima Foundation, Holding Favela in partnership with small entrepreneurs, today invisible to many eyes. We need to give a new step towards independence. This step is called social entrepreneurship on the basis of Brazilian social society, and also to train small entrepreneurs. This is our challenge and our mission. Thank you very much. Another partner that's developing a few projects, technological projects with us, our partner Patrick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Celso and Minister Patriota and Campello. It's an honor to be here. I'm representing Facebook here. within the global launching. You spoke about entrepreneurship and jobs. Facebook believes in it and believes that social network helps with work, with jobs. A Deloitte study last year demonstrated that there were 230,000 jobs created by Facebook. We initiated a pilot within Heliópolis favela. I'm not going to say community anymore. It's a favela. 200,000 individuals, 5,000 small companies. We initiated in the beginning of the year. We had a lab, training lab, innovation lab. 900 traders have been through this lab, and we see the results, real results of increasing businesses. We see hairdressers, etc., that 70% of their clients come from Facebook. We see the lunch persons who sell sandwiches that are ordered by Facebook. So we believe that technology can help to create new jobs and empowerment. And the Heliópolis pilot in a partnership with UNAS, which is Heliópolis Favela Residents Association, we learned that we cannot do it alone. We need peer partnerships in order to get to what we need to do still. And it's with pride that we're here with CUFA to expand this project to other favelas.
In Rio, São Paulo, the rest of Brazil, and now the world, thank yourselves for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. Congratulations. Well, so from today on, people from CUFA do not use Orkut anymore, please. Renato Meireles, representing a partnership that CUFA set up, which is Data Favelas. The name is a research institute talking about technological, scientific knowledge about favelas. How's everybody? Celso, Zezé, Teresa? My name is Renato Meireles. I'm president of the Data Popular Institute, which is the first institute to establish itself at the base of the pyramid in Brazil. But what makes me proud, Celso, is to be founder of Data Favela, or Data Favela, which is a research institute that does not have as a mission talk about the favela, but help favela talk to the world. That makes all the difference. When we started to create Data Favela, I had to learn that, and maybe this could be the only tip I have to give to anybody here today who wasn't born in a favela. I had to learn that in order to understand the favela, you need to understand ourselves first. I'm a man, and as a man, I make more than women. I'm white, and as a white man, I make more money than black people. I am the third generation of people in my family who had a university degree, and I had a whole set of opportunities that neither Celso nor Dade or Giza had. For them to be able to be here today, they had to work a lot harder than I would have to be here, and it's impossible to understand favela without understanding the asphalt or the street, and to understand our condition as privileged. Alongside CUFA, we were able to map and quantify the economy, the dreams, the aspirations of the Brazilian favelas. We today at the UN headquarters, the most important organizations in the world, the headquarters of the UN, 193 countries. I have the pleasure of talking about the 194th country, which is called favela. It has over 34 million people, 2 Denmarks. In this country, not favela, 53% of the inhabitants went hungry at least once in their lives. 66% of these inhabitants had some African descent, while throughout society, it's 3/4 white, 3.5 times younger than the rest of Brazil, not because they have more children, but because they die killed by the police and the traffic every day. Country where there's not enough nurses and too much prejudice. This country named favela has a territory, has in the territory an occupation force and a peace force that makes that its workers every day have to suffer with police oppression every day. Yes, 68% of the men in the favelas were stopped by police in the last 6 months, so that you have an idea. This number means it's only 17% between white people. It's a country where most workers had to lie about where they live in order to get a job. Yes, inside Brazil, 63% of the employers say they are afraid to hire somebody who lives in a favela. That's a sad picture, but believe me, it's just a picture. The film of this country named Favela is a lot more beautiful. It is changing. It's transformative. It's revolutionary. Today, while the whole world suffers with the great economic crisis, we have a territory that is growing socially and economically, which is a lot above the world average. In the last decade, 65% of the favela denizens improved their income, and today are part of the wealthier half of the world. You didn't misunderstand me. That's it. Today, 2/3 of the favela inhabitants belong to the richer half of the world. I have 1 billion Chinese that are poorer than the Brazilian favela inhabitant. I have 1 billion people in India who are poorer than the favela denizen in Brazil. This guy is an entrepreneur. He wants to have his own business so he doesn't have to bow to prejudice. The will to be an entrepreneur in favelas is 65% bigger than in the whole country of Brazil. This country decreased its illiteracy rate in 49%. It has 63% of their young youth studying more than their parents. Even inside a country, a crisis, this country is going to move $19.5 billion. There's still a lot to be done, but this way to transform the reality in Brazil has a method and goals. The method is based on public and private policies that has the favelado or favela inhabitant not only as a beneficiary but protagonist. It's a goal that's not always valued. It's a goal that always takes the back burner when we put in focus reduction of poverty, which is key, true, but like the government says in my country, is only a first step because it speaks of correcting a history of inequality, but does not leave clear what the path to the future is. It has a goal with the goal that is attacked with a very easy discourse and false discourse of the meritocracy. False not because the values of people's effort, which is good. False because it presupposes that inequality does not exist, and in the ghettos of Brazil and the world, everybody has the same opportunities to make a living as the citizen of the richest cities on the planet. This is an unfair and unreal discourse. It's false when it puts the poor as the center. This is not my goal. This is unanimous in all the studies of data favela is a goal that's for the favela, but it should be of all of us. It's a easy, fair goal. It's an unceasing and unnegotiable search for opportunities. I learned with Celso and Preto Zezé that this is the goal. Equality of opportunity. No leader in the world can go to sleep at night while the children in favela don't have the same opportunity as any child in New York. That's not a favor. That's an opportunity. That's justice. Celso Zezé, there's nothing else that I'm proud of than to be a soldier of CUFA in this fighting for a future that doesn't interest where you were born, but where you want to arrive. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this team. Thank you. Well, my friends, this is the feeling that makes us be a partner to our friends from the asphalt. If we're able to reproduce more people such as these, CUFA will not need to be in a few years, and neither this kind of ratio and territorial discussion will be necessary anymore because it won't even be an issue. And in order to be able to close our global action right now, I on behalf of CUFA, even without the authority to do it, I want to give Petrus as empower him as president of Global CUFA. And the questions, and since we don't have a whole lot of time here, the question for you is, what are our goals from this moment on and based on your new mission? Now it's good night. I'd like to greet all the authorities since we're getting here to the later part of our program. The challenges are still complex and they're still instigating the reality that we're here. We're the center of the nations that discusses the problems of the planet and the complexity that we live at this moment in the world, especially with people from slums in other countries that are now trying to cross the Atlantic to try and find a better life in the European countries. Europe that so many times crossed in the opposite direction to appropriate of wealth, natural resources, to the point that in these countries generated war and more inequality, and now we have this inverse crossing, this hangover. This is one of the first challenges to make the world a place without borders for human beings, because if there's no more borders for merchandise, there shouldn't be any borders for human beings. It is difficult not to comment with being in the United States of America, compare processes of inequality, since the issue of racism was so discussed here, but it's hard not to compare the Brazilian and American processes in the sense that here the American black is 13% of the population, and we have an idea the feeling that their presence here corresponds to over a half, while in Brazil we're over half, and the idea is that we don't even exist. So these parallels are all this time being in our head to challenge us to be a mix of the intelligence here and there, or how we're going to discuss these issues. I remember that the last time I was here was during the manifestations against the death Michael Brown. He was a black young man who was killed by policemen and manifestations throughout the United States in several cities. While in Brazil, 30,000 young black people are killed every year. 77% of the youth killed in Brazil are black, and we cannot advance this agenda that doesn't move people. There's no editorials in newspapers. That just becomes statistics. The complexity comes from placing this demand, which is is so present in the discourses of the managers and so discussed in the corporations, is so recognized as a priority of the youth, oppressed groups, especially the blacks and women. But when you observe the budgets, when these groups have to transform into public budgets, you realize that invisibility is there too alongside these processes. So then the feeling of the discourse does not correspond when you have to vote these budgets and put them in the practical terms. And when you look around the world, it's the same thing. An interesting comparison. Recently, there was a movie here in the United States that is coming to Brazil little by little called Selma, that displays the struggle of black people to be able to vote in a city in the United States, and the artists who won the soundtrack too, Coleman and John Legend, they made a comment that I thought it was incredible, because in Brazil we have 600,000 young people in jail, and he said that in Brazil the jail is extension of the favela because they only have black and poor people in the Brazilian jails. And the comments of John Legend that I thought was great, that they recorded during when they received the prize, the award, is that today they have more black people in jail in the United States than when slavery was still before the abolishment of slavery. So to become the key of all so many protests, to so many, that is we got to time to turn the key to today's agenda, which is agenda of dialogue, composition, and common agendas that are interesting to Ford Foundation, to corporations, to the financial sector, that we discuss how to resolve the problems, solve the problems, because why natural resources are becoming more and more scarce. There's drought, migrations, full populations migrating to urban centers, we have to have a pact. Just like in Brazil, we're going to bring this discourse to the UN, to the great international forums, which is urgent to have a pact, a social agreement, accord, so that we can include people as well as preserve the natural resources of the planet. Otherwise, we can see already that a great part of the wars, migrations, and the explosion of great urban centers are a consequence of the conditions of living, of water and food, of where people live. Today, there's a global CUFA week coming here to its climax here at UN at the house. We have many important contacts, partners that we reapproach. To our new partners, I have people here from Harlem, from Brooklyn, my friend from Bronx, Christine, up there, who just arrived. A lot of people who are willing to add and to be part of this CUFA convoy. And also would like here to call upon and now get into a great challenge here. We call these, we already did in Brazil, to the Brazilian academia in the structure of the University, Federal and State University of Rio de Janeiro. But I'd like to invite the academic, public and private academic houses in the United States and research centers, so that we can elaborate a platform for the goals and development of slums throughout the world. Here we are making a call here. Columbia, all the universities, even Columbia was our partner through this global week to be part of this team of CUFA. We invite CUFA to add in the efforts, because when we go back to Brazil now, we will go back to the 26 states plus the federal district, the capital, to discuss with the favelas what will this platform be, what will our goals be as favelas to be executed in partnership with the corporations and the government, because we believe it's only possible to solve the favela problems, although always trying to be a protagonist, but the solution is also in the asphalt, in the parliaments, houses, in the government houses, and with the leaders of nations. Today here, we launched this challenge, and it's interesting that the discussion here during the panels, that there's three issues that for us are key. UN Habitat that discusses the urban issues, how if we're not going to end the favelas, we have to make them better places to live, and I hope we can do this as soon as possible. So CUFA, we're going to have to do something else except discussing this issue. Also, and the ONU UN agenda, the 10 years of the African people of African descendancy, because we think this is also very important, because we know the color of people who are dying, the people who are migrating, and in Brazil, the ones who die the most are the blacks, and who kills? The police, and that shows a little bit of institutional side. But when I see a decision to occupy a favela by the police, I know that black people will die there. I don't know if they're young, or people who live there, people who are and they have a life of crime, but also the police, because in my country, the police has the greatest number of blacks. That's where they kill the most, but also die the most in the world, the police. And in closing, I'd like to say that we have conditioned, in spite of all the difficulties and complexity, to build a common agenda, because these are all global issues. The young man sees a problem in the neighborhood where I come from. It's the same difficulty, which is similar to the one from the Bronx, or the young person in LA, on the streets, or Nairobi, in the whole world, in the slums of the world. So since these are global issues, we have everything: energy, effort, know-how, intelligence, and especially willingness, energy, to create common alternatives, common solutions. Thank you very much. I would like to register it's important in our path, is our partners, our friends. These are very important people. I'd like to send a special greeting to my wife, Cynthia, who is in Ceará in Brazil now. She's 18 weeks pregnant. She's watching us on TV. My friends from Ceará here, Amadeu Maia, journalist from Jangadeiros TV, Ademilson Filho, who is an actor, lives here. He's here and there. And also send a special greeting to my son, Jonas, which I lost in the last few days. And he's probably watching us from heaven now, and I hope the pain of his loss is transformed into energy to create a better world. I would like to invite Celso Ataíde, we have here in a moment here to pay our tributes for him to pay a special tribute for this Global Week. Well, I'm not. I'm going to be brief. Since Zezé is calling here the family agenda, I also left my wife. She's also in Brazil. A big kiss for her, my other son, all the CUFA family who is in Brazil. As I said in the beginning here, my parents are no longer here physically, but I had a commitment that I made to my mother. When we used to live in the streets, we used to live off of a small petty crime, and she used to be embarrassed of us, and she would say one day she would be proud of us. When we started our work in the favela, it was very dangerous. She was very afraid what we were doing. She was saying that one day she was going to be proud of us. She was educated to be afraid, and so did we, and to be able to overcome this fear, make her feel. I told her that one day she was going to be proud of us. She's no longer with us. When I came to America into the year 2000, I met a few people here, as Fat Fred, Mos Def, Jay-Z. I met Russell Simmons. These are people that I brought to Brazil to do some events with CUFA. And they always said that it was a lot harder here. People here were harder. People were less. They loved the less. That in Brazil was a lot more. Everything was a party. Everything was easier in Brazil. Except that they forgot that there's a patent over black people all over the world, which is Africa. Africa has the patent over us. When we arrived here, my son walking the streets of the Bronx, he called me and told me that he had seen a wall and that we could do an intervention at that wall. Along with Lígia, they went inside the house. They found the owner.
It was a big mansion. 5 floors within Bronx. And they spoke with the people. They were very nice to them, and I came here to meet these people. She's a black woman from Jamaica. She lives here. And at this time, I would like to call my stepfather who raised me and also took care of my education, and this woman who is now CUFA's mother, who gave 6,000 square meters for CUFA's activities that makes the space available for CUFA, and therefore I want this woman to come here and with my stepfather, who is really my father, to wrap up this evening, because I have another mother in the U.S. Welcome, Mother. Thales, Renata. Thales, my son, Renata, and I'd like now you are taking over Brazil, CUFA Brazil, and I wrap up.
Today, Celso, you did not tell me it was going to be a marathon. I think we're by now hungry, tired. Everybody is ready to go. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are. I am the executive director of the Mid-Bronx Senior Citizens Council. We are a 42-year-old organization in the South Bronx. We have been doing this work that you have been doing in CUFA now all of these years, and many, many of my staff people are here, so I want them to stand so that you can see them. They're all over the room here. Besides this group, there are actually 300 of us because we have services in the Bronx. We own and manage 1,100 units of housing now. We provide Meals on Wheels, pantries, food pantries, daycare programs, after-school programs, and we began just like CUFA as a group of volunteers that came together that wanted to make a difference in their community. And we have made a difference, just as you have. And what we see, and what I understood when I met Celso, was that we had, even though we are on different continents, you're in Brazil, we're in the South Bronx, we have a great deal in common. Our mission is the same. Our goals are the same. The conditions in our communities are the same. So we have decided that we are going to form a collaboration. With that collaboration, we believe that we will learn much from CUFA and that you will learn much from us, and that we will be able to expand the services, programs, art and cultural events, all of the things that you've been talking about today, that we've done and that we want to learn how you do it. So there'll be a great exchange between us as to what and how we can eradicate poverty in both our communities. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you so much for adopting me as mom. I have a son that's here, and this one, my new son here. These two, when they met, they really made the catalyst and the relationship that has brought us together. Thank you, Celso. It is a privilege and an honor.
Hoje,
Since everything that's good, everything in Brazil ends in party and in music in Brazil. So the recreative group Unidos da CUFA, CUFA United, is the group that I am introducing to you at this moment. Guys, I would like to thank, just 1 minute, please. I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our fight continues. I may not reach every fight, but it is going to continue with me or without me. And now the music, Brazilian music.
Ei, ei, ei. ei, não vai. A minha. Será que eu serei o dono dessa festa? O rei, o meio de um